All the emotions that are suppressed or unexpressed tend to stay in our body. They have some physical effect on us. They act like ticking bombs in our body. Hello everyone, I am Anushka Srivastav and I welcome you all to Strike Eye, where we build a future in which you could feel empowered, skilled and directed. Today we have Mukti Singh Thakur with us, who is Assistant Psychology Professor. She is trained in clinical psychology from University of Delhi, trained in rational emotive behavioral therapy from Self-Aligned and Affiliated Training Center of Albert Ellis Institute, New York, certified trainer in emotional intelligence. So before we start, Mukti, I just want to know, what is this emotional intelligence all about and why it is important?
Thank you, Anushka, for that lovely introduction. You asked me what is emotional intelligence. Well, emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and perceive our own emotions and the emotions of others. And it is also the ability to regulate those emotions. It has four major aspects. The first one is empathy. That is to be able to understand what others are feeling. Empathy is different from sympathy. Sympathy means that you understand the emotions of others as an outsider, as an observer, right? If my friend has failed in the examination and I look at her and I feel bad for her that, oh my God, she failed in the examination. Then at that point of time, I'm sympathizing with my friend. But if I can actually feel her pain, what she might be going through, what all thoughts she might be having when she has failed, then that is empathy. And I can only have empathy when I have experienced that emotion, when I have felt that emotion, right? Otherwise, if I have not felt that emotion, I cannot understand the emotions of others. So therefore, empathy needs you to understand your own emotions and the emotions of others equally. And why is empathy important? Because we function in a social environment which is full of people. And to function with people, to maintain a relationships with people, especially right now when we're talking about emotional intelligence and mental health at workplace, to have a good rapport with your boss, to have a good rapport with your colleagues, to be a team player, to be a leader in any group project, or to be able to express your opinion in a workplace, you need to know what is the temperament of other people around you. What things do they react to? Are they aggressive? Are they assertive? What things might offend them? All of these things you can understand by being empathetic, by understanding the temperament, by emotional reactions, the nature of the other person, right? The second aspect is, and the most important, is self-awareness. Self-awareness means being able to understand yourself, being aware about your emotions and the self-confidence that you get from that. Understanding yourself, knowing yourself well. Emotional awareness means knowing which emotions, out of the emotional palette that we have various emotions, which emotions largely color you. Which emotions do you most of the time feel? And which are the situations that trigger you to feel those emotions? What are the trigger points? Self-confidence means knowing about your abilities, knowing about your strengths, and knowing about your weaknesses, so that you do not get influenced by the situations or the things happening around you, because you know who you are. So self-awareness becomes very important at that point of time. The third aspect is self-regulation. That is how well you can handle your emotions at times when you are under stress. How well can you handle that anxiety when you have to go up on the stage and speak in front of everybody? How well can you handle your depression when you have a big presentation tomorrow, you don't feel like working? Then how can you still work? If nobody is talking to you in the office, then how can you still be cheerful with everybody? So all of these things become very important. This is a part of self-regulation. And the last one is social relationships. How to maintain relationships with others, how to build relationships with others. That is, and all four of these make up what is emotional intelligence. Now, the question was, why is it important at workplace? Because, it does not always take a heartbreak for you to go into that dark hole of feeling sad and depressed. Sometimes it's simple things like not getting the due recognition for the work you have done, or being held accountable for something, the work that you were not assigned for, or just a simple thing like, your colleague with whom you sit every day, the one who shares your desk with, you go to that person and you wish that person good morning, and for some reason that person does not wish you good morning with the same enthusiasm that you wish the person with. These simple things, these simple nuances, they color the entire day. The emotion that you feel at that point of time, the whole thing colors your entire efficiency at work. And this is not something that I've observed. It's something which is proven. The whole field of industrial psychology is based on this. How can we increase the efficiency of people by improving the environment at workplace? Organizational psychology is all about that. In fact, even after, and this all began after the World War I, when countries found that people who were emotionally more mature were better to combat at the battlefield. They were better able to handle the stress and everything that is there, because a lot of the people who were there at the field, a lot of soldiers suffer from PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. So later on, since World War II, they developed tests that are still used in army, like the alpha test and the beta test. These tests are used to test a person's emotional intelligence, how well can they handle combat situations, and after coming back from combat situation, will they still be able to function normally? So this is where emotional intelligence becomes important at workplace as well, because you are an individual. You take your mind, your body and your emotions, everything at the workplace. You do not leave it back home. You go to the workplace as a whole, and 75% of people's daily life is spent at their workplace. And most of the thoughts that you have are also about your work, about things that have happened at work, the way you were treated at work. So we cannot separate emotions from workplace. Therefore, I think emotional intelligence and the talk about this that we are having right now is very important.
Okay, Mukti, so you told what is emotional intelligence and why it is important. But how can people analyze their own emotions?
Analyzing your own emotions becomes a part of self-awareness. I talked about the 4 elements of emotional intelligence, that is empathy, self-regulation, self-awareness, and social relationships, right? So understanding your own emotions is a part of emotional awareness, which I said was a part of self-awareness. And within this, the first thing which is very important is introspection. Easier said than done. Introspection means examining your own thoughts and feelings and analyzing these feelings. For this, a person has to be mindful that in a situation, like which emotions do we want to analyze? It's usually the distressing emotions, right? If we talk about emotional intelligence, if somebody has ever thought about how emotionally intelligent they are they capable enough of handling their emotions, then it is because they have suffered from a distressful emotion. So किसी को भी खुशी होती है या if somebody is very elated, nobody minds that, nobody thinks about it कि मुझे इतनी ज़्यादा खुशी क्यों हो रही है. People usually will think of मुझे इतनी ज़्यादा anxiety क्यों हो रही है. Why am I feeling so sad? Why am I feeling so depressed? So it's usually the distressing emotions. So analyzing the distressing emotion and which distressing emotion are you going through. People say that they're feeling low. Feeling low is a very vague term. What do you feel when you're feeling low? Are you feeling depressed? Are you feeling shame? Are you feeling guilt? Are you feeling regret? Are you feeling sad? So to know these terms, to know the difference between these, what is the difference between sadness and depression? It's not, both are not the same thing. So to know this, people also need to be educated, which we call psychoeducation about emotions, to be able to recognize the emotion that they're feeling. And some activities can help in this. Journaling. If you've gone through something you thought that was distressful, then write about that and try to analyze your emotion. Another thing could be talking to others, people that you trust, people who you feel are not judgmental. You can talk to them and get feedback from them. What is their perception about you? You can also talk to a psychologist if none of these things are helping. If you feel that you're not able to analyze your emotion, it's very complex, situations are very complex, then you can always go to a psychologist. And if even that is not possible, then there are psychological tests which help you understand how emotionally intelligent you are and which emotions tend to be highlight your emotional or the mood state more than others. That could help.
Okay, so Mukti, you told about that there are many number of digital platforms for this. Do you really think that it is reliable, including that humans are having very complex nature?
So I understand that you're trying to say that are these apps and websites reliable considering how complex human emotions are, and just filling one form cannot help a person understand what he actually and really is feeling and what the person goes through. So look, these tools and these diagnostic instruments are only a start point. They only help you understand if the emotion that you're feeling is healthy or unhealthy. What is the emotion that you're mostly feeling? Is it anxiety or is it depression? Then later on, these are just assisting tools. Later on, it gives you a starting point, and then later on you can take your case from there. That okay, you can get an idea about what exactly am I feeling and how can I deal with this. For that you can take the help of a psychologist. Even the psychologist, like, we use these tests only to discriminate people within healthy and unhealthy. If the person is feeling a healthy emotion or an unhealthy emotion, what is the personality of a person. Personality tests are not very reliable, because to understand a person's personality we have to rely on what the person is saying. It's not easy, and the person, लोगों को खुद भी नहीं पता होता कि वो क्या है. So we have to rely on what they say. So they just give us a starting point, as in from where do we have to start, and from there, by talking to the person, by like I said, you can journal. Then when you have that starting point, then from there you can start observing yourself. Okay, mostly I'm anxious, so now I have to focus on incidents where I'm mostly anxious. What are my triggers? How much anxiety is which trigger causing? Is this situation causing me a lot of anxiety? This one causes me medium level of anxiety. This one does not cause me any anxiety. If it's depression, then which moments are there which cause you most depression? You can then take feedback from others, that when do you think that I'm mostly restless? If you found out through that instrument that you're mostly anxious, then you can ask people around you that when do you think I'm mostly anxious. Or you can journal about things. You can journal about incidents that have happened in your life, and you can note down that okay, here I reacted in a way that was not very much of myself. So diagnostic tools are not completely reliable, but they are assisting tools which help you understand yourself.
Since we are talking about emotional intelligence in workplace, a lot of organizations feel that being lenient in their administration could affect their productivity negatively. Can you please give your views on this?
First of all, if an organization feels that being lenient or being kind or being considerate about their employees would reduce their productivity, then that organization is not going to do it. The organizations that do these things are, I think, driven by passion, and the individuals are also driven by passion. They do not work there for the money. They do not work there for the leniency or what is happening around, or how the organization setup is, because they love their work. And when a person is internally driven to work, the leniency in the organization, the consideration about the employee in the organization only enhances the work. It is then when the people they do not like the work, or they are not driven about the work, they are working for some other reason that rather than loving the work, it is then when leniency tends to reduce productivity. Only then.
When we talk about loneliness or depression, people usually think about their causes, but they hardly seek for its solution. Could you suggest how should we deal with this?
So depression, you have a very good question, because depression today has become a worldwide problem. It's one of the top causes for deaths these days, because depression often leads to suicide. And why is this happening right now? Because in the past 2 decades, life has become very fast paced, and there is cutthroat competition, and a lot of stress is there, sedentary lifestyle. All of these things are causing depression. The solution of depression lies in its cause. So it's very individual to everyone what would be the solution for them for depression, because it is directly related to what caused the depression for that person. It could be genetic causes, it could be a biological cause, that is imbalance in the hormones of the person or the neurotransmitters of the person. genetic, like I said, that a person is predisposed to be depressed. The person is carrying the genes to be depressed, or it could be socio cultural factors. Now family influences could also be there. Now within the family, is it having a lot of parental control, or having authoritarian parenting, or there is violence in the house, or is it the peer pressure, or is it the something that is happening in the school or college, or is it something that is happening in the workplace? So the solution often lies in the cause. But there are some common ways which might help people, which I can suggest right now, and I think it can be useful for them. Although the process of finding a solution to your depression is very individual, and that is why it requires the help of a psychologist which can cater to your problems individually if the depression is really taking over your life. But there are some common ways, there are some self-help techniques that people can use. I think the first one would be to reduce relative deprivation. What is relative deprivation? It is the sense of deprivation, deprivation, which means that आपके पास कुछ नहीं है या कुछ lacking है. Having this sense, having this feeling when you compare yourself with others. Like, I mean, till, there could be one person who never felt like he had to travel the world till 20 years of his life. But as soon as he downloaded Instagram, or as soon as this person downloaded Facebook, and he started seeing posts of all of these people who are, who write on their bios, we have wanderlust and everything. So they started seeing these people travel, and they started seeing all of these beautiful places, and these people having fun at these beautiful places. And suddenly they feel like they are deprived of something, that something is missing in their life. This is called relative deprivation. So to stop comparing our lives with others, because, and this you can only do when you understand, when you accept the fact that social media is a big facade. People's life are as difficult as yours is probably. They also have stresses, they also have all the problems. Maybe they are also suffering relative deprivation when they look at someone else's life. So to compare someone else's life with yours, or your life with someone else, is just not right. If you want something, then maybe work for it. Having, wishing to have something is not bad, but making that thing your need and internalizing that need is bad for people, because it tends to make you feel that something is missing in your life and it has to be there, it should be there. Unless there is this should, there will not be any feeling of sadness. But when we make that missing thing a should and a must, that is when we start feeling depressed and sad. Secondly, the most important thing in this pandemic is is having the right sleep cycle. This has really disturbed people's routines. What is happening in this pandemic is that the defense mechanisms that we used to use earlier, like a lot of people rely on the routine for escaping all the bad emotions or escaping all the problems, and a lot of people rely on going to work or meeting people. All of that is not happening right now. So people are not ready for this new situation. They do not have the defense mechanisms. They do not have the emotional kit to deal with this new situation, because their minds are used to dealing with the situation or the routine that they have had before. So what people can do is try to bring some routine into their lifestyle by sleeping on time, by exercising a little bit, and maybe eating the right amount of food and giving yourself nutrition that your body requires. I said that depression is also because of hormonal and neurotransmitter imbalances, because of biological reasons. Neurotransmitters and hormones work because they function well if your body is functioning well. Hormones require to be released in your bloodstream. Now for them to flow easily into your body, throughout your body needs to have the sufficient amount of liquid or water in your body. Then about neurotransmitters which are released from the brain, they survive in the cerebrospinal fluid, which again requires various numbers of vitamins, minerals and water. So your nutrition has to be very important. You'll see the change if you sleep on time, wake up on time, and you eat right in that day. You'll automatically feel a change in yourself. To assess this, people can have a sleep diary or a diet diary. They can, assess their mood patterns on the days that they slept well and on the days that they did not sleep well, and they'll know the difference. Another thing that could be there is, just not judging others, because we feel that we are being judged by others because we judge others. Because we judge people on the way they wear clothes or certain clothes, we feel like if we wear those clothes, people are going to judge us. If we have never known what judgment is, if we have never known how a person is judged on the basis of their clothes, we will never feel judged, क्योंकि हमें पता ही नहीं है, हमें वो knowledge ही नहीं है. So we need to stop judging people to feel judged ourselves. Then being self-empathetic, being nice to yourself. If a friend comes to me with a problem, I will give all sorts of nice suggestions to my friend. I'll give all my support to my friend. But if the same thing happens to me, if I make the same mistake, I will attack myself with all sorts of shame. Why cannot I be my own friend? You have to be your own friend. You have to be as supportive to yourself as you are to another friend. Look at yourself when you go through a problem. Look at yourself from outside. Look at yourself from a third person's point of view. Be kind to yourself, be nice to yourself, forgive yourself, and learn from your mistakes like you would do with a friend. Cut out toxicity. Anything which makes you feel insecure, anything which makes you feel let down, anything which makes you feel like you're not good enough or worth it, maybe you should rethink about those things and cut out things that cause you distress, cut out things that cause you anxiety or any sort of bad emotions. Pay attention to the feelings that are coming. I said in the beginning that be mindful. So be mindful of what are these triggers, what are these things that are causing you distress. Is there something that can be done about these situations, or these situations are not in your control and it's probably the other person and the environment that is causing these problems. So you have to cut out that toxicity out of your life as much as you can. And just put in efforts to be happy. Do things that make you happy. If you think that playing makes you happy, as a child when we used to play, playing made us very happy, so why not do it again? Play. If playing makes you happy, spend time with people that make you happy. If you're feeling sad, then go out there and be happy. Choose to be happy and put in the effort to be happy.
Some situations and failures are like unpredictable, like this entire pandemic. People are losing their jobs, they aren't paid, and many are confused with their career goals. What they should do in this pandemic so that they don't destroy their inner peace?
So here I would like to tell the viewers about my favorite mantra, which is focus on things that you can control and do not focus on things that you cannot control. So, if you have lost your job, there are a million others who have lost their job. And, to understand this thing that this is not going to be forever. It is going to get better and the opportunities will knock the door. But if you ask the questions like, when is the next opportunity going to knock the door? Then this question is something which is not in your control. What is in your control is how can you be best prepared for that opportunity, and how can if that opportunity comes, then how can you do better than others in that opportunity, because there are a million others who have lost their jobs. So how can you stand out among those thousands of people? The problem with stress and anxiety that comes because of uncertainty is that we ask the wrong questions from ourselves. We ask the questions that we do not have control on. That is, when is this going to get better? When am I going to go out? When I'm going to have a normal life? These things are not in our control. But what is in our control is how can I make the best out of this time? How can I make sure that the stress and anxiety that I'm feeling can be reduced? Asking yourself the right question and focusing on things that are in your control would be the best solution during this pandemic.
Thank you so much, Mukti. It was really a very interesting session and it would really help our viewers to be a better version of themselves.